This podcast replay is brought to you by Montez Dental, the implant and Invisalign experts. Take advantage of your insurance benefits for 2019 before the year runs out and they're all gone. Call 305-821-0231. Visit MontezDental.com.
I promised you we're going to talk to Tony Pauline. We love talking to Tony over the years at the ProFootballNetwork.com website. Go to it, ProFootballNetwork.com. Follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. Tony, good morning, my man. How are you doing?
I'm okay. How you doing?
I am loving life, my brother. Now, let me ask you something. This is kind of a turn we're making now with these quarterbacks because they're kind of one-year wonders and they're making the transfer over, whether it's Baker having the 1 year at Oklahoma and taking off, whether it's Kyler Murray with the 1 year and now Joe Burrow with the 1 year. And these teams are taking that next step and taking that chance. What is it about Burrow that locks him into being the number one guy in your eyes?
Number one, his game is on the upswing. I mean, he hasn't had really any bumps in the road this year. He just seems to get better and better. So you always want a quarterback when he's on the upswing as opposed to a guy where you may have to kind of resuscitate his game. Number two, obviously, he's playing in the SEC. He's come through in all the big moments for his team at LSU. Three, I really think he's developing a total game. I mean, you know, he's a guy who doesn't have a great offensive line, doesn't have great running backs. He's got some very good receivers, but he uses all his weapons. He seems to get it between the ears. He's not someone who just relies on his arm to make plays, but he's really developed, pulled all the pieces together, and he's on the upswing, and he's doing it at the right time, as a senior. And it looks like, he's going to be a top 5 pick. And if you had said this to me 2 months ago, I would have said, let's just sit back and wait and see what happens. But he just continues to impress week in and week out.
That to me, that's the part that he's got that moxie, man, that comes with it, and I really like it a lot. And obviously, it looks like the Bengals will take him at number one, being an Ohio kid and all of that. Now, Tony, tell me, why is it that everybody's wowed with his size and his arm and all of that, but when I look at the Oregon kid, it's just not there, my brother. It just doesn't convince me. So you tell me, does he convince you?
Well, you used the correct term, and the term was wow, and there is no wow factor in his game. I mean, except for the Arizona State game where he played poorly, he basically plays mistake-free football. He looks more like a game manager than a guy that's going to carry an offense on his shoulders, which he should be able to do at that school in that conference. I mean, if you've watched Oregon and I agree with you, if you watched Oregon this season, he's needed the pieces around him to work and work well in order for Oregon to win games, where Joe Burrow has basically, been the engine that's run the machine at LSU. You look at Oregon's games. I mean, how many times this year did they rush for more than 200 yards? And Herbert really, kind of saddled up and kind of was pulled along. The USC game, I mean, it was a close game. Then they had some big defensive plays at the end of the first half. They had a kick return for a touchdown, which really kind of blew the game open. And Herbert kind of caught on. He plays very uninspired football. He's got all the physical skills. You expect much more from him. The story I've been telling is 2.5 years ago, or 2.5 seasons ago, there was a Thursday night game where Oregon was playing in Wyoming, and everyone was all excited because Josh Allen had a tough game against Iowa. They expected Josh Allen, who was playing for Wyoming at the time, the quarterback, to rebound. And really, Justin Herbert just blew Josh Allen's doors off. I mean, he looked like the guy who was the franchise quarterback. And I don't think he's ever really topped that. I mean, Justin Herbert just never really comes through in the big spot, whether it's Auburn earlier this year, whether it's when they can't hold the lead, whether it's Arizona State this season, whether it's Washington a year ago. Just doesn't seem to be able to come through and pull his team, through in the big spot the way Joe Burrow does.
Yeah, that to me is the one thing that has stood out. So, the Tua thing, where are you with the hip injury? Will Carroll, the injury expert, we have him on every week, and he thinks the hip injury is a lot like Dennis Pitta, which the Dennis Pitta one kept dislocating, and he's been injury prone, 4 surgeries in 2 years. You're in Miami now doing this interview. They have 3 picks in the first round, so it's a multi-part question. What do you feel about the kid? Is he injury prone? And if you're looking at it as a Dolphin fan, would you take him with the first, the second, or the third pick in the first round, or would you pass on him and wait till the second round? How do you look at Tua through Dolphin eyes?
Well, number one, he absolutely is injury prone. I mean, the record is there. There's no doubt about it. But as far as, what would I do if I'm the Dolphins? It's way too early to tell. I mean, no one can draw any conclusions at this point. I know everyone wanted answers yesterday. But, I mean, the injury happened a couple of weeks ago. We still have 4 months before the draft. Number one, he still has to declare himself eligible for the draft. And then he's got to go through combine medicals. So, really, it's all going to come down to what the team doctors and team medical staff think in Indianapolis if Tua, in fact, enters the draft, declares for the draft. And then they do those combine medicals, because those combine medicals are a different beast altogether. I mean, they will look for things that general doctors just won't find. And I can go through example after example. And even with combine medicals, it's not – each team has their own opinion. So there will be some teams that say there's no way in God's name we're drafting this guy. Another team will say, okay, he's fine. As I said, everyone wanted answers on Tua yesterday. You're going to have to wait and see. He's got to declare for the draft, and then you're going to have to wait for those combine medicals, maybe the medical rechecks, and see what leaks out. Is he injury prone? He absolutely is. There's no doubt about it. The hip injury does scares me a lot.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's way too early to tell.
Yeah, the injury, I mean, for me, he scares me, period, because he's just fragile. And if he can't stay healthy in a shorter season in a league where they don't hit as hard as they do in the NFL, I'm terrified for the kid at the next level. The shame is he's a deadly accurate passer, right? I mean, that's the one thing that has to have stood out to you, right, Tony? The accuracy is awesome.
He's a good quarterback. He's a good passer. He's a lot more than just a real good athlete at the quarterback position. You mentioned his accuracy. He does a great job. He's got great weapons at his disposal. He's got a great offensive line blocking for him, but he also seems to get it. He gets it between the ears, whether it's his accuracy, whether it's his ability for the most part to stay away from mistakes, whether it's his patience in the pocket or the ability to elude the rush and get outside the pocket. He is a little bit tough to scout because of the fact that, as I said, there's so much talent around him compared to, the other quarterbacks that you scout. But the fact is the bottom line is Tagovailoa is absolutely a good passer, and he's more than an athlete at the quarterback position. He really gets it between the ears.
Tony Pauline, of course, you can follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline and check out the ProFootballNetwork.com website. Plenty of breaking news, articles, all kinds of great stuff on that website. You can catch Tony's work there. All right, go with me on this one, Tony. You can't get Joe Burrow if you're the Dolphins because he's off the board. The Bengals took him. You're kind of nervous about Tua with that first round pick. You don't want to take the chance on the hip. Okay, so you're not convinced. Neither am I with Justin Herbert. Perfect. So that second first round pick could be somewhere in the teens, late teens maybe. All right. Is there another guy? Is there the Fromm, the Eason, one of those guys? Maybe even Jordan Love. Do you take him that high? Is there another guy that intrigues you that the Dolphins should consider in that first round?
Well, forget about Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm right now, as far as I'm concerned, is a day 3 pick. I mean, you want to say Justin Herbert, there's nothing about his game. You got to multiply that by 10 when you look at Jake Fromm.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Another conversation. You got to consider Herbert. You got to consider Jordan Love. Jacob Eason scares me because of the fact that he's got just such a minimal body of work. You talk about the one-year wonders. Well, Baker Mayfield had a big body of work behind him before his senior season in Oklahoma. Joe Burrow's got a decent body of work. Jacob Eason really doesn't have that much body of work since he's barely played up until the season. He barely played football the prior 2 years. Jacob Eason, I think, he's got a lot of great tools. He's got some skills that really are mouth-watering type skills, but he's also got a big buzz factor to his game. So if you take Jacob Eason with that second pick or even that third pick of the first round, you better be patient with him. I don't think he's a guy that you're going to be able to throw into the lineup right away. And if you do, you're going to expect some bumps in the road. I'm going to tell you, if they don't go quarterback first round, Jalen Hurts of Oklahoma in day two, sometime in day two, is really starting to grow on me. I mean, the guy who basically left Alabama because Tagovailoa was beating him out, he is really starting to get it as a passer. I know that Oklahoma system is really quarterback friendly, but he's got all the physical skills, and it's really starting to click mentally for him. The way he sees the field, his decision making. He's got to work on his ball security, but I really think he's developing into a real good quarterback, and I like his next level potential.
Tony, how have you scouted Jordan Love? Because I've watched a couple Utah State games, and the team is freaking terrible, bro, around him. Now, he has these wow moments, and he has some really nice athleticism, too. He's got a nice arm. So I don't know how you assess this kid, because there are those moments that you're like, holy crap. And then there are those moments where you're head scratching, but you also wonder, is he just trying to do too much because it's a really bad team around him? How do you see that kid?
I absolutely agree with your last point, and that was obvious to me the first game of the season against Wake Forest, where they lost a 3-point game. It's ironic. Jordan Love this year at Utah State really reminds me of Josh Allen's last year at Wyoming. Same sort of situation in the sense that you love his physical skills. He had excellent size. He had a next-level arm. He was very athletic, can make plays in and out of the pocket, made some wow throws that only a handful of quarterbacks can make, but then also had some decisions where you were like, what the heck was going on there? Had some poor games, had some games where he looked very ordinary. So really, Jordan Love, I think, in 2019, parallels what we saw from Josh Allen of Wyoming the last year he was there before he entered the draft. I think with both guys, whether it be Josh Allen now in Buffalo, who's having a degree of success, whether it be Jordan Love when he eventually jumps to the next level, I think he's the type of guy that's going to need a real good quarterback coach. He's going to need someone who can develop him. He's going to need some hand-holding. He's got a great amount of upside. It's just a matter of harvesting that talent and really developing the player, because, we sit here and we talk about the draft and people go crazy on after draft weekend, which team won, which team lost. Draft is just the beginning. It's not the ending. And you've got to be able to coach these guys and develop these guys. And I think that's what's going to take for Jordan Love.
A guy you and I are going to see at the Senior Bowl is going to be Anthony Gordon out of Washington State. What can you tell me about this kid? Because there's a lot of people talking about his physical attributes.
Funny, a lot like his predecessor, Gardner Minshew, who really came out of nowhere, caught a lot of people by surprise, got an invitation to the Senior Bowl. Gardner Minshew turned a lot of people on to the Senior Bowl. We'll have to wait and see what Gordon kind of finished on a flat note against Washington. I think he had like 60 pass attempts. Just was not good during that game. Made some bad throws. I think with Gordon is you basically, unlike what I mentioned about Tagovailoa, what I mentioned about Jalen Hurts, I think with Gordon is he needs more experience. It's got to click for him mentally, so the mental part of his game really starts to catch up with the physical aspects that he possesses.
Is there another guy we haven't talked about that might be completely under the radar, might be at the East-West, NFLPA, or somebody like that you're intrigued with? That's a raw project.
Yeah, I've always liked Kelly Bryant. I liked him when he was at Clemson. I liked some of the things he did at Missouri. He's a guy who I think is more of a developmental type of quarterback, but I think he's got a high upside. I also like Steven Montez at Colorado, who has had those wow moments, really looked fantastic as a sophomore, has had some sensational moments the past 2 years, but has also looked awful at times. And his physical skills are right there with some of the top quarterbacks in this draft. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the arm strength, he's incredibly athletic, but his decision-making is suspect at times. His accuracy gets away from him. And, it's a situation where, like Jordan Love, where Steven Montez has got the foundations to play at the next level. He's just going to need a bit of development. He's going to need some proper coaching. And I think if you hit on all cylinders with Steven Montez, you could have a very good quarterback. You have a very good quarterback prospect.
There you go. Interesting stuff. And, of course, Tony Pauline, you can follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. You can catch his work at ProFootballNetwork.com. All right, Tony, you know the Patriot way. And you know that we have Brian Flores down here. And so Brian may be doing a lot of things the Patriot way like. And because of the way they run their defense, it could be 3-4, it could be 4-3. If Miami is at 2 or 3, and let's say Chase Young is there from Ohio State, normally the Patriots don't commit to those kind of players on the edges because they got to pay him a lot of money eventually. This is a guy that's a monster. Does he fit what the Dolphins may want to do Patriot like, where he could be rushing and he could be dropping back in coverage and all those kind of things? Talk to us a little bit about Chase Young. We know he's an incredible pass rusher. How is he as a complete football player, and does he translate to what the Dolphins would do if they're doing it Patriot way?
Yeah, my highest rated player in this draft by a lot. I mean, here's a guy who can come out of a three-point stance. He can stand over tackle. I think he's deceptively strong. I don't think he's great against the run, but I think that will come. He shows the ability to slice through blocks and get behind the line of scrimmage. He's incredibly athletic, gets out in space to pursue the action. You know about his pass rush skill, whether he's sacking the quarterback or whether he's just harassing the quarterback and making the quarterback move his feet and move around the pocket. You know, I think it would be kind of tough for any team, even the Bengals at the top, who I think will pass on him. But I think after the Bengals take Joe Burrow, I think any team, literally, assuming that all the character boxes check off and everything's fine and he works out well, which I would expect a good workout from him. But if he checks off all the boxes, I think really, if we assume that the Bengals are taking Joe Burrow at number 1, which I think is a pretty safe assumption, I think any team after that number 1 pick would be hard-pressed to pass up on Chase Young because he can do so many things so well. He's a young guy. He's only going to get better as he physically matures. You know, for all intents and purposes, Chase Young could have redshirted this year the way we saw Jadeveon Clowney do his final year at South Carolina and say, you know what, I'm going to take the year off. I'm going to get ready for the draft. I don't want to get hurt. And what did Chase Young do? I mean, every time he was on the field, he's an impact player. He's going to be in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony. He's not going to win the Heisman Trophy. But I think the fact, the way he just competed this year and the way he improved over the type of player he was a year ago says a lot about him. If I'm Miami and, you know, I'm not sold on Tua. I'm a little concerned about Tua early in the draft, and Chase Young is staring me in the face. I'm jumping all over him.
Okay. All right. Now, here's the tough question. Or maybe it's not tough because you've always got conviction and you do your homework. All right. So Miami ends up at number 3. We know Burrow's 1. We know Young is 2, or vice versa, however you want to do it. Who's the third best player in the draft that you would say, if you're Tony Pauline, you're in charge of the Dolphin draft, I got to have this guy at number 3. Who would it be that would make the Dolphin fan feel good?
I know a lot of Dolphin fans, when they hear this, they're probably going to drive off the road, but let's see what happens as we get closer to draft day. I like Andrew Thomas, the left tackle from Georgia.
Okay.
I think he's and they're going to need a left tackle after the trade last year. He is a sensational athlete. He's got a high amount of upside. He's a terrific pass blocker who's outstanding blocking in motion. He's only going to get better. His run blocking will only get better as he gets bigger and stronger and he physically matures. I'm told he's going to enter the draft. He's rated as a top 5 player on my board. I am one who always believes that if you need a left tackle is a priority position in the NFL draft. I'm kind of old-fashioned like that, but there are still teams who like those left tackles. And again, I think Andrew Thomas of Georgia is a guy who I believe can be a day 1 starter and will only improve as time goes on.
Lord knows the Dolphins need it, so you either get a franchise QB, you get a franchise defensive end, or you get a franchise left tackle, which, by the way, they just traded their franchise left tackle a few weeks back. So that's definitely a must-read. ProFootballNetwork.com, Tony, tell them about it so they can check it out.
Well, basically, it's an expansion of where I was before in the sense that it's everything football. I mean, we got draft stuff 12 months a year headed by myself. There's a lot of information on fantasy football. We look at the breaking news stories, and we add information into those breaking news stories. There's also a little information there if anybody who likes to wager on football games.
Ooh.
So basically, it encompasses all of football. We've got college football breakdowns as well. So it encompasses all of football, basically 12 months a year, 7 days a week. So it's really an expansion of what I was doing with just the draft stuff, where it's NFL, it's fantasy, it's wagering. We have our own metric system there to basically gauge how a lot of offensive players are doing. So basically, it's one-stop shopping for all your football needs.
There you go. And you know Tony Pauline brings it every single time. Great information, breaking news. Follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline, and, of course, catch his exceptional work at the ProFootballNetwork.com. Tony, I'll see you in St. Pete in a month, my brother. Thank you as always.
Look forward to it. Thanks.
You got it. There you go. The great Tony Pauline, baby, from ProFootballNetwork.com. That was an awesome segment right there.